Just want to pin this. It won't let me. There we go. Hey guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hi Dwayne. Hi Country Girl. CC Cubed. Good morning. 6 feet of zero fucks. I love it. Thank you, CC. Elle is here. Just going to give it a few moments because the topic I want to speak on today. Good morning, Marlene. The topic I want to speak on today is so super important because this particular word, thank you. This particular word has such weight to it, and you'll see it here posted at the bottom. Today I'm talking about victimization. Hi, Stacy. I miss you too, Mara. This is crazy. We spend we haven't seen each other near enough. We live so close together. Anyway, victimization. So I follow a lot of other coaches, relationship coaches, narcissistic abuse recovery coaches here on Instagram. I follow a lot of psychologists, I follow a lot of people. And there's terminology out there that gets thrown around and gets a lot of heat, actually. And two of the words, I'm talking about victimization, but I want to address the type of heat the word narcissist takes. So there's two things. A lot of people are quick to say, Mark Groves, someone here at Create the Love, talked about this the other day, where we're so quick to throw the word narcissist around for people who are emotionally distant and unavailable. And this is true. We do this, but as a society we do this, but there's a very real aspect of narcissism that is harmful, and that's someone who has narcissistic personality disorder. And then people will jump and defend that and say, yeah, but you can't prove because only 4% of our population has been diagnosed with NPD or psychopathy or sociopathy. And that's all very well and true. However, there's still a large population of cluster B personality disorders walking around on the planet that have not gone to therapy to be diagnosed. Clinically diagnosed. Somebody said to me, yeah, well, only 4% of diagnosed people are NPD. 4% of 7 billion people is still a lot. We have 33 million people in Canada. 7% of that is a lot. And that's just what's been diagnosed. That's not what has not been diagnosed. So the biggest thing with people who have NPD or any cluster B personality disorder is getting them to the therapist to be diagnosed. And many of them don't believe that there's anything wrong with them. Therefore, they're still out there in the world causing harm. So there's a difference between narcissism and someone with NPD. And I want to address the word victimization because there are a lot of people who will say, get out of victim mode. You're such a victim. You're such a victim. Let me tell you something. We will always be victims of abuse. Always. There's no way to phrase that any differently, to change the wording to make other people feel more comfortable without diluting the issue. And the issue is that there are abusers out there. There are people who are getting away with harming other people. Just because we will always be victims of abuse does not mean we remain in a victim mentality. This needs to be a shift in our awareness around victims of abuse. I can say a survivor of abuse, but you know what? I will always be a victim of abuse because victimization means that something unjust has occurred to you and has happened to you, and you'll never be able to undo that. That's what victimization is that you are the focus of someone who has caused you harm and has forever changed your brain chemistry, your physical body, how you perceive the world. That's victimization. And yes, it can change it for the better, but it doesn't mean that you remain in that victim mentality. I am a victim of abuse. I'm also a survivor of abuse, but I'm not going to paraphrase where I'm at in my healing so that somebody else can feel good about where I'm at. And you know what? I love that Mark Groves tackled this the other day, and he really wanted to address the responsibility that we put on narcissistic terminology. But we can't make light of what this kind of abuse does to people. This kind of abuse stays with you for the rest of your life. Whether you thrive beyond it or remain in the pain of it, it changes you. And the only way that we can bring awareness to this is to stop making light of victims and being in a victim space. Like, you are going to shift through your healing. You're going to come out and you are going to feel like in a victim mentality. You're in crisis mode. You've just been psychologically, physically, emotionally, sexually, financially raped. Completely. In every aspect of your being, it has been diminished and discarded. And now you've got to start and shift from that victim to get to surviving, to get to thriving. But we can't help people if we're not addressing the fact that this abuse has happened to them. We're always going to be victims of abuse, and we should be using our voices to bring that awareness about. And just because we get to a place where it no longer, and some people do, I'm not there yet. I'm not at a place where it no longer affects my life. It impacts my life in great ways, in ways that I don't even understand sometimes. It impacts my life when I'm making decisions. It impacts my life when I'm engaging in conversation with people. It impacts my life in where I go and who I'm with and the things that I want to achieve. It impacts my life in ways that I still have yet to understand. And when somebody comes on and says, stop being a victim, kiss my ass. Because this abuse is coming into awareness, not because we're throwing the word narcissist around, but because now people are starting to talk about narcissistic abuse by cluster B personality disorders. There are more victims who are speaking out against this, and that's why it's in our society now. That's why you're hearing people talk about it, because it's real as fuck. It's real as fuck. It's not people wanting to shift blame or put the responsibility on someone else. It's people who have been abused, who have been violated. That's what victimization is a violation of who you are, of your physical body, your spiritual body, your emotional body. That is what victimization is a violation. And when you've been violated, damn rights you're going to be hurt and you're going to be in pain and you're going to be loud and pissed off about it. And you should be. You should be. What happened to you was fucking wrong. You did not ask for it. You did not beg for it. You did not call it into your existence. You were like a deer, as my friend Dwayne put it to me the other day. It's like a herd of deer and the hunter just picks one. That deer didn't ask to be chosen. Might have been a little more vulnerable, but it didn't ask. It didn't say, hey, look at me, I'm your target. Even though the deer is the target, it didn't say, I'm your target. It's the same thing when it comes to perpetrators and victims. Victims are chosen because they have what the perpetrator wants. We don't willingly hand it over. So there is no responsibility in abuse on the victim, none whatsoever. We don't say, here, have this. It is an insidious form of abuse that you don't even know what's happening to you. And it sometimes takes years to figure out what's happened to you after the fact. So it is, thank you, Dwayne, it is more widespread than people realize. And more psychologists are talking about this, how there's a huge population that's going undiagnosed. And you can't tell me, I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that all of the people I see here on Instagram, all of the people I see out on Twitter are talking about the same kind of abuse and how it's altered their body chemistry, their physiology, how everything sounds so systematic when they're talking about the abuse, because it's real. It's real. And we need to stop denying that this happens by trying to put the blame and the responsibility on the victim, not the perpetrator. Because I never hear of those people who are saying, well, what was your responsibility in this? What's your responsibility? No one ever comes up and says, well, I wonder what that motherfucker's responsibility was in this. What a piece of shit. Nobody says that to me. They want to know what my part in this was. I was a target. You were a target. Nothing more. You didn't go out and put a big red bullseye on your back. Our vulnerabilities made us ripe for the picking. It doesn't mean we stay in victim mode. It means that we take what happened to us and we rise like a badass that we are, and we make absolutely sure that we never go through this again. Cassidy says, my best friend was that voice for me. It's so hard to hear what's going on because it's not just as simple as shifting blame or responsibility. You have to clearly understand what happens to victims within these relationships. Their hippocampus shrinks, which means their memory and their learning center is no longer able to retain information. It fragments trauma so that you can survive. So, of course, I hate when someone says, didn't you see the red flags? No, because you were love bombed and idealized to high heaven at the very beginning of the relationship. The very beginning. So then by the time the red flags are coming, you're already in it. The brain atrophy is already started. The brain atrophy's already begun. And that's why the gaslighting and the love bombing has such a profound effect on your brain. Doctors are proving that trauma damages your brain. So how can you think for yourself when you're being psychologically abused every single day? So people who want to say, well, what was your responsibility in it? Well, I don't know, man. Like, I was abused and my brain shrunk. Really shrunk. It's literally brain damage without getting hit in a concussion. It's exactly what it is. And then what starts to happen is you become very sick. You become very ill because your cortisol levels are racing through the roof because your adrenaline's always pumping. You're always in fight, flight, or freeze mode. So when your hippocampus shrinks, your amygdala enlarges. So you're always reacting out of fight, flight, or freeze. You're always reacting out of trauma. So what's your responsibility in this? Don't even. There are evil people out in this world. And I didn't believe that there were until I spent almost 7 years with one. And can we see the flags in hindsight, the red flags in hindsight? Of course we can. Because now we're educated on narcissistic personality disorder. We're educated on this abuse. We have support. We have all of these tools available to us. But let me tell you, nobody was really talking about this 5 years ago. Not in the capacity that we are right now. So it's all about awareness. It is an awakening. We are on the cusp. Thank you, Dwayne. We are on the cusp of an awakening. So we can't have responsibility in an abusive relationship. We can have responsibility when we're in a healthy partnership with someone. I have responsibility in my healthy friendships to show up authentically, to have conversations that are uncomfortable, to pay attention to the other person's needs. But when you're in an abusive relationship, it's not how it goes. You have no responsibility when someone is psychologically damaging you. I would love it if people who have never been through a narcissistically abusive relationship could stop talking about the responsibility that victims have in it and acting like it's not abuse, because it is. It is abuse. And we're not going to bring a change to it or bring awareness to it if we keep shifting the responsibility onto the victim and victim shaming and victim blaming. That only creates more distance and dissonance, cognitive dissonance, when we need to heal. We need to understand that this has happened to someone, and we need to hear their voice. We need to be their voice sometimes, and we need to validate what has happened. And we can't if we're always asking, what's your responsibility in this? You don't have responsibility in what happened, but what you can do is have accountability for your healing. That means reaching out to the right people. That means having a coach and a therapist. That means staying in the groove with your doctor and sometimes bringing research to your doctor because they don't know what this abuse does. You can rewire your brain. You can heal your brain and grow that hippocampus to be big and beautiful all over again. But it takes a lot of work. And when people are dismissive of what you have experienced and are dismissive of the actual abuse, the effects that this abuse has had on you, physically and emotionally and mentally, physiologically, you can't heal. It just creates more distance and more shame. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. The shame that we feel has been put on us by the abuser. And the shame that continues to perpetuate in this community is brought on by people who don't understand the actual effects this has because they've never been in it. And bless their hearts. Thank God that they've never had that experience. And if they have and they continue to victim shame, there's still some healing there to do. A whole lot of healing to do. Because if you are healed, and there are people who claim to be 100% healed, which I don't think ever happens. Tracy's severe lack of empathy. If you are healed, you will be able to have empathy for people where they're at in their healing journey, wherever they're at, whether they're coming out in crisis mode and feel victimized, whether they're in a position now where they're not in crisis mode and they're surviving. That's great. And if you're thriving, even better. But you know what? Someone who has healed their traumas will have empathy for others. And let me tell you, when people say you're not over your traumas, how do you get over that? How do you just get over your trauma? I'll never be over the trauma that has occurred. I'll never be over the abuse of what we all have endured, not just for me, but for other victims on a whole. I'll never be over what's happened because the day that I'm over it is the day that I stop bringing awareness to it. It's the day that I stop talking about it. It's the day that I stop using my voice and I finally found my voice. And I'm going to use it. I'm going to be loud about it. And you don't have to like it, and I don't give a shit. I have the responsibility to take care of my own self, to work on healing my own pain and trauma with patience, grace, and ease. That is accountability. That is holding yourself accountable to heal yourself. Even saying that you're responsible to heal, that still shifts the blame. I've learned so much and have grown so much because I used to believe it's not your responsibility. What happened to you is not your responsibility, but it's your responsibility to heal. Just hold yourself accountable. Just hold yourself accountable. And whenever somebody calls you a victim, yeah, I'll always be a victim of abuse. But never again. Never again. And when these people continue to victim shame, they're trying to silence you. I won't be silent. I won't be. Because Not enough people are starting to speak up about it. And now the ones that don't want to believe that this actually exists are the ones who are saying, oh, we're throwing the word narcissism around too much. No, we're not. We're bringing awareness to something that's been going on for decades. Decades. This is the generation where it all stops. My daughter was home a week and a half ago, and she said to me, Mom, I may never have kids. I may never have a partner. I may never be married. She says, but it stops here with me. This generational trauma stops with me. I promise you. And that's because I had a whole lot of things to lose by speaking up about this. And I have lost a lot, but I've gained so much more because now my voice is mine. And it's not just mine. My voice is speaking for so many others who cannot, who are not safe to do so yet, who don't feel like they can or ever will. And that's okay. There are people out there speaking for us, speaking for you. Yes, you'll be a victim. Always be a victim of abuse in the past, but you'll never be victim to it again because you're becoming aware. Live Lux, we need to create a petition and change the law. You know what? People say report abuse to the police, but the police can't do anything if there's no law to uphold what's happened. So we do need to petition. We need to start a bill and take it to our parliament and say we need to make these changes. Scotland's done that. They've done that. This abuse is now included in their domestic abuse laws, which is fucking brilliant. But we still have so far to go. But we're so much further ahead than we were 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Now we're seeing movies like Dear John. Now we're seeing movies like Surviving R. Kelly that are true stories. These things are being brought to light because this is really what happens. Don't let somebody sit there and tell you that being a victim of abuse is wrong. There's enough shame that we carry because of the abuse. We need to start telling a different story. And yeah, you can shift your wording, but what does that do? It dilutes the issue. It dilutes what happened. And we've got to stop diluting things and watering it down for other people to be comfortable. We need to make people uncomfortable with this. We do. This is really what happens in relationships behind closed doors. So we do need people to squirm a little in their seats. It's completely okay. I've lost a lot. Listen, me speaking out about abuse and advocating so profoundly for it and mental health. I've always been an advocate for mental health, but I never knew how deeply impacted my mental well-being was until I was in an abusive relationship with a narcissist. And I had never felt more crazy, more unhealthy, more anxious, more depressed in my life. So yeah, I'm going to speak out about this. And believe me when I say that speaking out about abuse doesn't exactly make me a hot ticket on the dating scene or for job opportunities. So everything I speak of is completely intentional to bring awareness, to help somebody, to help one person hear what they can't say for themselves and to go, oh my God, that's happening to me. I'm packing my bags and I'm gone. And I've gotten those messages. I pack my bags because I've been listening to you for 3 months and I'm gone. Cassidy says, my situation included leaving and going to a domestic abuse shelter with my kids. I was scared that they wouldn't let us take shelter there because we were not physically abused. They were so understanding, confused that I was being abused and controlled. And abuse centers are becoming, they're so aware of this. They're so aware of psychological, financial, sexual, but there's still so much to go, because when I went to my therapist, she didn't want to talk about the sexual abuse that I experienced in that relationship, she suggested that I go to a sexual abuse support group. And then they were suggesting that I go to a codependency support group. And I'm like, so I'm going to make a full-time job out of going to all these different support groups? No. I'm going to keep talking about this until people understand that we need to address this as a whole. As a whole. And Cassidy, thank you for pointing this out. They helped me with legal fees and they got me a restraining order. When you go to these abuse shelters, yeah, it's not ideal. It's not what you want to do. It's not comfortable, but they can get the ball rolling for you. They have the resources available to help you. So let them. There's no shame in going to an abuse center or a shelter. You have to protect yourself. You have to do what's best for you. Police in Germany were behind him because he is a former famous football player. They try to criminalize me since months to protect him, and he steals everything and destroyed my existence and reputation. And they do. But there are a whole lot of people starting to speak out against these celebrities now, against these athletes. And I'm so sorry that happened for you that way. But we've got to keep talking. I may never find the right job opportunity again, but that's a lie. I'm creating my opportunities. I don't need to work for a company that doesn't align with my belief system, corporate or otherwise. If you can't align with my messaging, I'm not going to curb it anymore just to have a paycheck. The system now is only a band-aid and coping mechanism. They aren't diving into the crux of it, but it's changing the more we speak out and educate. And the more we speak out and educate, the more that the system takes in. The more that the system says, we can't just not do anything anymore. Things only change because people are loud. People get loud about it, and that's how things change. Things stay the same if there's no awareness. Little Darcy. Hi, Darcy. Your videos have helped me so much. 6 years being with a narcissist, and I've just recently gone no contact, and I'm having a horrible time. So glad I found you on Instagram. I want to address this. Just because you leave doesn't mean that the battle's over. There's a long way to go. There's a long way to go. Yes, narcissism it exists in the workplace a lot. You're free, and that's the first step. But there's a lot. You're in crisis mode right now. You're having a hard time because you're going through withdrawals. This creates an addiction, a physical, chemical addiction in your body. And you do go through withdrawals. So you have to treat it like any other addiction. You have to completely detox. Get your support system in place. Find a narc sponsor. Someone who understands, who has been through it and has found their way through no contact. But then you also have to be willing to let them guide you, to let them help you. You know what, Callie Queen, you're absolutely right. Domestic violence shelters don't always work in your best favor, in your favor. But we can't give up on ourselves. We can't give up. Stacy, you can go into corporate places and teach about narcissistic abuse. It absolutely happens in the workplace. Yep. Empowerment through knowledge is a gift you can give to the corporate world. And this is, there's got to be some movement this year, you guys. But I just wanted to come on here and I wanted to tell you that we're always going to be victims of abuse. So don't let anyone shame you for using that word or terminology, because victimization is when you've been victimized, you've been violated. It's that simple. So we can talk about people out on the streets who are victims of homelessness. We can talk about people who are victims of abuse or victims of addiction or victims of those who are addicted or any of those things. But you know what? So it's just a word. It's just a word. But it's a profound word that brings awareness. So keep speaking up. And you know what? Ruini, my therapist was a flying monkey for very good money. Was his flying monkey for very good money. You know, do we have to be careful? Absolutely. We need to stay aware. But we can't give up hope. We can't. Because hope is what led us to leaving the narcissist. Hope is what gets us through every single day. Hope is what we have when there's nothing left. But hope is not a strategy. You still have to strategize. You still have to plan. You still have to have action plans in place. Get yourself a coach. Doesn't have to be me. Doesn't. You need to find someone that feels right for you. But coaches and therapists are different. But they do similar things. We do talk therapy, but we provide you with tools. Coaches provide you with tools to help you stay accountable, to change. Anyway, that's all I got. I just wanted to jump on here today, talk about victimization and how it's an absolute violation. And don't be shamed. You have nothing to be ashamed of. I know shame and guilt come from other people's bullshit, stuff they put on you. You're also badass. I love you like crazy. I think you're amazing. And you inspire me and give me a reason and a purpose to keep showing up here every single day. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. You have given me hope. So carry on through your week. It's a magical Monday. And stay badass. Stay badass. Love you guys. Bye for now.